decades earlier. When I was in school, I didn't know about this. Now, all the textbook, they say very clearly that the sun, besides revolving, even rotates about its own axis. Who could have mentioned this in the Quran? And most probably, the atheist, he'll be silent. Don't wait for the reply, continue. Today, science tells us that our universe is expanding, which we discovered recently, a couple of 100 years back. Quran mentions in Surah Dhariyat, chapter number 51, verse number 47, that we have created the expanding universe, the vastness of space. The Arabic musiona, the Arabic word musiona, it means the expanding universe, the vastness of space. There may be many critics of Islam who will say it is nothing great that the Quran speaks about astronomy, since the Arabs were advanced in the field of astronomy. And I do agree with them that the Arabs were advanced in the field of astronomy. But I'd like to remind them, it was centuries after the Quran was revealed that the Arabs became advanced in the field of astronomy. So it's from the Quran that the Arabs learned about astronomy and not the vice versa. In the field of hydrology, when we asked the atheist that when did we come to know about the water cycle? So he will tell you that Sir Bernard Palissy in 1580 was the first person who described the present water cycle. How does the water evaporate from the ocean? It forms into clouds, moves into the interior, it falls on a rain, and the water cycle is replenished. This water cycle is mentioned in the Quran in great detail 1400 years ago. The Quran mentions too that the water evaporates from the ocean, forms into clouds, the clouds join, then move into the interior, then the water falls down, and the water table is replenished. The Quran speaks about hydrology and the water cycle in great detail in several verses. In Surah Az-Zumar, chapter 39, verse number 21. In Surah Rum, chapter number 30, verse number 24. In Surah Mu'minun, chapter number 23, verse number 18. In Surah Hijr, chapter number 15, verse number 22. In Surah Nur, chapter number 24, verse number 43. In Surah Rum, chapter number 30, verse number 48. In Surah Araf, chapter number 7, verse 57. In Surah Ra'd, chapter number 13, verse number 17. In Surah Furqan, chapter number 25, verse number 40 and 49. In Surah Fatir, chapter number 35, verse number 9. In Surah Yasin, chapter number 36, verse number 34. In Surah Ghafir, chapter number 40. As well as Surah Jashiya, chapter number 45, verse number 5. In Surah Qaf, chapter number 50, verse number 9 and 10. In Surah Waqia, chapter 56, verse number 68 to 70. In Surah Mulk, chapter 67, verse number 30. In Surah Tariq, chapter 86, verse number 11. You can quote, only keep on quoting the references. The Quran speaks about the water cycle in great detail. Who could have mentioned this in the Quran 14 years ago? Don't wait for the answer, continue. The Quran, it speaks about geology, that the mountains have got pegs which give stability to the earth. It's mentioned in Surah Naba, chapter number 78, verse number 6 and 7. In the field of oceanology, we knew there were two types of water, salt and sweet, but the Quran goes ahead and says in Surah Taha, chapter number 20, verse number 53, it is he who has let free two bodies of flowing water, one sweet and palatable, the other it is salty and bitter. Though they meet, they do not mix. There is a barrier which is forbidden to be trespassed. And today, we know that this barzakh, what the Quran speaks about, today, those people who are expert in the subject of oceanology, they say this is called as an unseen barrier. The Quran, it speaks about biology. In Surah Anbiya, chapter 21, verse number 30, وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ hai. We have created every living thing from water. Who could have believed in the deserts of Arabia 1400 years ago, where there is scarcity of water, that every living creature is made of water? But today, science has testified that. In the field of botany, the Quran says in Surah Taha, chapter 20, verse 53, that we have created the plants in pairs, male and female. Previously, we did not know that even the plants are created in male and female. Quran says in Surah Ra'd, chapter number 13, verse number 3, that we have created every kind of fruit in pairs. In the field of geology, The Quran says in Surah Anam, chapter number 6, verse number 38, that the birds and the animals live in community like the human beings, which we came to know recently. Quran speaks about the lifestyle of the bee in Surah Nahl, chapter 16, verse 60 and 69. The Quran speaks about the lifestyle of the spider in Surah Ankabut, chapter number 20, verse number 41. The Quran speaks about the lifestyle of the ants in Surah Namal, chapter number 27, verse number 17 and 18, all of which we have come to know recently, 50 years back, 100 years back, 200 years back. In the field of medicine, the Quran says in Surah Nahl, chapter number 16, verse number 68 and 69, that we give to the human beings a drink of varying colors coming from the belly of the bee, in which there is healing for mankind. Today we have come to know recently that the honey is derived from the belly of the bee, and in the honey it has got antiseptic properties. No wonder the Russians used honey to cover up the wounds. This we came to know recently. In the field of physiology, the Quran speaks about the blood circulation and the production of milk in a nutshell in Surah Nahl, chapter 16, verse 66. In the field of genetics, the Quran says in Surah Najm, chapter number 53, verse number 45-46, as well as Surah Qiyamah, chapter 75, verse number 37 and 39, that it is the male fluid, the sperm, which is responsible for the sex of the child, which we have come to know recently. The Quran speaks about embryology in great detail in Surah Alaq, chapter 96, verse number 1, that we have created the human being from alaqa, that's a leech-like substance, something which clings. It's also called as a congealed clot of blood. The Quran speaks about the various embryological stages in great detail, which modern embryology has just discovered recently in Surah Mu'minun, chapter 23, verse number 12 to 14. I'll just mention a couple of more. Normally, the unbelievers, they object that how can Almighty God, once we have died and we have been buried in the ground, in the dust, how will Almighty God be able to reassemble our bones after our bones have got disintegrated? On the day of judgment, how will be able to reassemble the bones? And Almighty God says in Surah Qiyamah, chapter number 75, verse number 3 and 4, that He can not only reassemble the bones, He can even reassemble the very tips of the finger in perfect order. And it was in 1880 that Sir Francis Gould discovered the fingerprinting method and said that no two fingerprints, even in millions of human beings, even if millions of human beings together, no two fingerprints are identical. What the CIA, the police, the CID, the FBI, today they use the fingerprinting method to identify the criminal. Allah mentions 1400 years ago. He can not only reassemble your bones, He can even reconstruct in perfect order the very tips of your finger. When we ask the atheist that who would have mentioned this in the Quran, the only reply he can give you is, it is the creator, it is the manufacturer, it is the inventor, it is the maker, it is the producer. This creator, this manufacturer, this inventor, this maker, this producer, we Muslims, we call him as Allah. I have tried to summarize my 2 hours lecture of Saturday in only approximately 15 minutes, so that we can have more time for question and answer session, just for the benefit of the multiple times number of people that are here. According to Albert Einstein, he said that science without religion is lame, and religion without science is blind. Let me remind you, the glorious Quran is not a book of science, S-C-I-E-N-C-E, but it's a book of signs, S-I-G-N-S. It's a book of ayats. And in the glorious Quran, there are more than 6,000 signs, more than 6,000 ayats, out of which more than 1,000 speak about science. I'm not trying to take the help of science to prove the authenticity of the Quran. For us Muslims, the Quran is a yardstick. But for the non-Muslims, for the atheist, For him, science is the yardstick. So I'm taking his yardstick and comparing with our yardstick and trying to prove that what your yardstick has mentioned yesterday, 50 years back, 100 years back, 200 years back, our yardstick, the glorious Quran, has already mentioned 14 years ago. That's the reason today science is not eliminating God, but it is eliminating models of God. La ilaha illallah. So this glorious Quran has the solution to the problems of humankind. And its author is the creator, the sustainer, the cherisher of the whole humankind, of the whole universe.